Hi guys, welcome. Today we are talking about Trachycarpus fortunei, or windmill palm in English. We call it exactly the same in Swedish, väderkvarnspalm. And we're talking about it for a specific reason, because this is one of the few palms that we actually can get to survive here in southern Sweden. Some can even manage to have it planted in the soil, have it out all year around. Now, as usual, we are going to divide this up into 4 pieces. You have the purchase, the planting, the placement, and the care of the plant. So if you want to skip forward, you can. So, beginning with the purchase. When you go out to buy your windmill palm, there are actually 2 or 3 things you have to look about. And we have a small one here. And the first thing you should do when you buy it is you should take it up and take away the plastic pot which it came in. And that is only because you want to see the roots. Now, you don't have to have a lot of roots, but you want the roots to be white and quite thick. And the other thing you have to look about is if you can get a palm that doesn't have long stems like this. They should actually only be maybe half as long. When they are this long, you know that they have probably been pre-grown in a greenhouse. But if they are half that size instead, they are probably grown outside. And if they're grown outside, it means that you're going to get a stronger, healthier plant than the one that has been sitting in a greenhouse and gotten the perfect temperature, the perfect humidity, the perfect watering, and so on and so forth. So the other one that has been grown outside actually is stronger to begin with, and that's only good for you. And when you're out looking at these different palms, sometimes you can find palm trees that have a trunk or a stem that is actually a little bit curved, like almost a C. Now, this plant has had that curve when I bought it, but you can't see it anymore because it's as the stem has become thicker, it disappears. But you shouldn't be worried if you find a palm that has this curve, because actually, and this is only my own experience, the ones that are a bit curved when they're small actually get stronger in time than the ones that aren't. Why, I'm not quite sure, but they have the ability to survive better in colder climates. So when you have bought your plant, it's time to plant it in something. And here in the southern parts of Sweden, you almost don't have a choice. You have to plant it in a pot so that you can move it around after the season. Because if you put it down into the soil, it will probably not survive because of the cold winters we have here. So you have to pick a pot that is quite easy to move, and also you should pick a pot, if you can, that is isolated. Nowadays they sell quite a lot of different pots that have some form of isolation inside of them, so you don't have to add that yourself. And if you want to try and have a palm tree outside in the winter, the pot needs to be isolated. The other thing you have to think about is, of course, the soil. The Trachycarpus wants to have a well-drained soil so that the water can go through it quite easily. And also it needs a little bit of nutrition. So try and buy a premium soil and not the cheap kind that you can buy in a hardware store to plant it in. We don't, I say we, but we are actually an indoor landscaping company, and I have more than 20 years experience from taking care of plants. So when I say we, I mean we as a company are not using soil anymore. We're actually using pumice, or what is called volcanic, is a form of volcanic rock like this. And if you want to, just check out our site and check out the video we are making about pumice. You can see how it works and why we're using it. But if you use soil, make sure that it's a premium kind and not the cheap kind. It helps you a lot in trying to make the palm as healthy as you can. Placement. Well, as I said, we're in the southern parts of Sweden where it gets quite cold, and even the summers can be quite cold. We have approximately between 20 and 25 degrees Celsius in the days and about 15 degrees in the nighttime. So you know approximately how it is here. So where you put your plant is quite important. The Tachycarpus wants to have a lot of light, a lot of sunlight, and it also needs to have it as a warm spot as possible. So if you can place it in a southern part of the garden, or perhaps enclosed between two walls or something that can add to this warmth it needs, it is a plus. It will not survive as well if you put it somewhere where it doesn't get sunlight. Now, if you should put it down into the soil on the ground, you have to place it in a somewhere where it gets full sunlight almost all day and is protected from wind during the cold nights. And you can also help it by covering up the soil around it to make the soil warmer for the roots. However, it's not likely that it's going to survive a full winter, at least not here in Sweden. Taking care of the Tachycarpus is quite easy once you've planted it and made all the arrangements for it. So what you need to do is water it regularly and see to it that the soil, or the pumice that I have here, is quite moist all the time. It can dry out a little bit in between the waterings, but it wants to have a moist soil around the roots. The best thing of all is to plant it in a self-watering pot or a self-watering container. If you want to know more about self-watering containers, you can check out our video at the site. And if you have any more questions, just please write them to us. When watering, you can the best thing is to add the nutrients to the water. That's my recommendation, and you can do that maybe once a month, or maybe even once every 2 weeks, depending on how often you water the plant. If you have a normal pot that has a hole in the bottom so that the water is going to run out, you should give nutrients maybe every 2 weeks. However, if you have a self-watering pot that contains the water, you only have to do it once a month. Now, the Tachycarpus is what we call frost hardy, which means that it can take, it can actually manage to survive in temperatures that go below 0 degrees Celsius. However, not too much and not for a long time. And here in Sweden we usually have below zero almost, not all of the winter, but a lot in the winter. So it's not going to survive standing outside in the wintertime. So the easiest thing to do is just to move the Tachycarpus to a shelter of some sort. It could be a greenhouse that you have a frost guard in. Frost guard means that it's going to make sure that you have at least 5 degrees Celsius all the time. So when it goes below that, the frost guard, the heater, starts and heats it up, so it goes over 5 degrees Celsius. so it never goes below. That's one thing to do. The other thing is you can put it in your garage. The garage, usually, even if it's not preheated, it will at least take care of the worst of the cold, so that the Tachycarpus is going to survive. However, if you put it in your garage, you have to put it next to a window because it needs a lot of light. It needs a lot of light in the summertime, but it also needs a lot of light in the wintertime. So a large window is probably the best thing to put it inside of your garage. The other thing is that you could put it in a uterum, we call it in Swedish. I think it's called a conservatory in English. And it's actually an extension of your house where you don't heat up in the wintertime, but you have built-in walls either of glass or of stone or something.
Not fully isolated.
Not fully isolated. Thank you, Philip. So a conservatory that's not fully isolated works just as fine as the garage, and even better concerning the light if you have a conservatory that has windows all the way around. And during the winter time, you should lower your watering frequencies. I have both these palms in my conservatory in wintertime, and I only water them maybe twice from November until February. So it doesn't need that much water, and because it's quite cold, of course. But if you water it too much, the roots are going to rot. So go out when you think about it, go out and feel a little bit in the soil, and it's usually going to be a little bit moist. But if you feel that it's starting to go dry, then you have to water it. But I only water these two twice in the winter season. What you have to consider though is that maybe in February or in March the sun is going to come out more, and the conservatory or the greenhouse or the garage is going to get heated up quite quickly. And if you're not ready for that, they don't have any water. So when it gets warmer, you have to start watering it more frequently. If you don't do this, it's going to die. When the spring is coming and it's time to take out your Tachycarpus from your garage or where you have put it in the wintertime, there is one thing you have to consider, and that is the sunlight. Because the plant has been inside the garage all winter, it's going to be very, very sensitive to the sunlight. So if you just put it right outside, it's going to get burnt. You're going to see this quite quickly because the plant is going to turn yellow or even going to be all brown. It's going to burn. It's an easy way to do this. If you have a place in your garden where you have a shady spot, maybe under a tree, or if you can pull out some large umbrella or something that can cover it from the sun, you can put it there for a couple of weeks or a couple of days. If you don't have this, then you have to put it out a couple of hours a day and put it in again. Then put it out the next day a couple of hours and put it in again. And over time it's going to get used to the sunlight. And it takes maybe a week or two before it's reintroduced to the sunlight, so to speak. So be gentle and don't forget to start water it frequently when the heat arrives. So that's all you need to know about the Tachycarpus. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions about this, don't hesitate to ask it to us, and don't forget to subscribe. Hej då!